passion, talent, development. NCAA hockey offers all that, and its players graduate at a 93% rate. Trevor Zegras.
And they score on the lacrosse move!
Jake Gensel.
Gensel banks it towards the goal. He scores!
Cale Makar.
Cale Makar, he scores!
Stars on campus before the NHL stage. Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
My goodness gracious me!
Visit collegehockeyinc.com and follow at College Hockey.
Welcome back to College Hockey Today. We are back for another season. He is Brad Schlossman, Grand Forks Herald hockey reporter. I am Jayson Hajdu, Senior Director of Communications for College Hockey Inc. And after an absolutely bonkers, crazy, goo-goo bananas offseason, we're finally ready to drop the puck in Division I men's college hockey. A memorable offseason, at times a long offseason, and really the whole calendar year has been pretty wild. But we're ready to hit the ice, to watch some hockey. We're going to go through just a little programming note, I guess. Typically with this episode, we would go in deep conference by conference and preview each league. Because of so many things that happen in the offseason, we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about some bigger picture stories affecting college hockey. We will still go through the conferences one by one at the end, but we've got some more high-level stuff to get to first. Schloss, thanks for joining us. Quite an off season. Are you ready to get to a press box already?
Yeah, I'm ready to watch some games. And really, I was watching the Atlantic Hockey Media Day press conference, and I thought Frank Serratore said it spot on. I'm going to write a story, and I'm using Frank's words because they were so right. But he said, get ready for the best season of college hockey ever, all time. And I think that's the era we're about to enter in college hockey. With the opening of the CHL, the player pool has never been bigger. And when you have this large of a player pool, it means everybody benefits off of this. The teams who are getting some of these players that would have been ineligible, it sets the bar higher for some of the USHL players to get into college. We're just going to see, and I think this is just the start. It's going to probably be even better next year. So it's an exciting era if you're a college hockey fan.
It's not hyperbole, even coming from a Serratore. I mean, there's nearly 260 draft picks playing college hockey this year. 18 of them are first rounders. But beyond just the influx of talent, we've got college hockey maybe in its best era of parity that we've seen. Yeah. I was working on some stuff for our first notebook, and more than half of the Division I programs have made the national tournament over the last 5 years at least once. So you've got parity already combined with this new influx of talent. On top of that, 11 new coaches around the country.
Yeah, that's crazy as well.
So yeah, I don't think it's a stretch by any means to say this could be the best, most intriguing college hockey season we've seen.
Yeah, and when you have the larger player pool, that lends to parity. So it might even increase here as this goes on. When I was writing about this when it first happened and the CHL opened up, my theory was that the blue bloods, the traditional powerhouse teams, are going to get 10 to 15% better. The non-traditional powerhouses will get 20 to 25% better. That's how I view it. We'll see how this works out. But I think just in general, anytime you have a larger player pool, no matter what sport, what level, it's going to lead to more parity. And so we're probably going to see even more of that. So some fans of traditional powerhouse programs that you're probably not going to win 80% of your games anymore. But what it means is every night you go to the rink, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's fun. I think it's boring when you go to a sporting event and you know exactly what's going to happen and then it happens. Totally. And when you go there and you're like, I don't know how this is going to play out. That's fun. So it should be great for fans in that sense.
This show is here for the chaos. Absolutely. And I guess most of the people who listen to this podcast are staying on top of the news throughout the off season, but we shouldn't assume everyone is. So we'll touch on some of these storylines. not the least of which obviously is the CHLers are here. Yep. And the youth sports players too. A lot of youth sports players coming in from Canada. With regard to the CHL, that there was a long time coming, but it felt like once it happened quickly. Yeah. So how do you think? I mean, besides just the obvious, well, there's more talent here now. The general impact on the college game here going forward as a result of this rule change.
I think more parity, more talent, and I also think it just means every team has more intriguing players because the talent goes up. And I'm going through all these rosters, and it felt like every team I went through, it was like, oh, I need to watch them early in the season. I need to catch one of their games. They're going to be really interesting. So again, if you really like watching college hockey, there's going to be so many fun teams to watch. I think I'm intrigued to see how some of these teams do. I think you're going to see more college guys in the NHL. So if you like following these guys as they go to the NHL, even more names are going to ring a bell now. You're going to say, oh yeah, I remember when this guy was at this school. It just is, it's going to be interesting. I'm watching the CHL. I've never watched CHL hockey. I never had to. These guys were ineligible for college. So I just focused on watching USHL, NAHL, those types of things. I've watched a lot of CHL the last few weeks, and that was kind of new. So it's interesting getting to know these leagues, figuring out how, at what age are some of these players going to come. And my general theory on this whole thing is that the CHL players are just like USHL players. They're the same, just playing in a different league. So if you're a first round pick, you're probably coming to college after your draft here. If you're not, 50%. A lot of those guys do go back to juniors the same way they do in the USHL. I hear this storyline that all these guys are going to go back to the CHL at midseason. Well, what happens with the USHL players? There are a couple each year that go back, but most of them don't. There might be a couple that go back, but most of them don't. That's the way I'm looking at it. What did the USHL guys do? It's probably the same.
I did grow up following the CHL. I was a dyed-in-the-wool Regina Pats fan. I think in terms of the hockey development universe, if this can make the CHL better as a result also, whether it's pouring more money into facilities, nutritionists, strength coaches, all of those player development tools, that's great for the sport as a whole too. So maybe one of those rising tides lifts all boats scenarios here.
Yeah, and it goes down to then the USHL does the same thing. Look at all the investments they're making right now, because now they're competing for players. That is really been the net effect so early on. And the one thing I don't think the junior hockey leagues fully realize is that college teams, they have to recruit 100% of their players. They're all recruited. They have to win a recruiting battle, convince a kid to come. And so college has been on this facilities and player development and tools push for 25 years. It's been an arms race forever. That was kind of the NIL before the NIL. How do you attract a player? Well, you're going to have the best developmental facilities, and the junior leagues just draft guys. Now the junior leagues are really getting into the same type of battle with the CHL, going head to head with the USHL for so many players. And as the CHL and USHL battle, they're both raising what they do in the meantime.
Did you detect any? So 174 players coming in from the CHL by our count. I think 77 of those were from the WHL. They had the most players come to the NCAA. Did you detect any type of recruiting patterns as far as profile of school, profile of player, anything like that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, everyone had a different strategy. I'm going through and looking at the spreadsheet I kept in the off season. Some teams went really heavy into the CHL and the WHL. It's probably not a surprise that which teams went to the Q. It was New Hampshire, Maine, just geographically makes sense for them. One thing I did hear was there were a fair number of players in the OHL who were not eligible for college. And what happened is you have to take X amount of core courses that are approved by the NCAA. And some of these guys went to the OHL. They realized they're no longer college eligible. So they're actually smart kids but they just don't take the core courses because they didn't think they were ever going to need to. And now all of a sudden they don't have enough cores to be college eligible. And from coaches I heard, they ran into that more in the Ontario League than the Q and the Dub. So that might be part of the reason the OHL number is lower. And that will raise now as these kids are coming up. They know what they need to do to stay. Now I'm college eligible. I'm going to stay on top to keep this option open. So I know there were kids in the OHL that wanted to come to college and they weren't eligible because they didn't take the correct courses, because they never thought they would have to. They thought they signed away their college eligibility. So that was one thing I heard. You had Omaha that went heavy into the U Sports. That was a thing. Omaha grabbed 8 U Sport players. One of them is going to stay in U Sport, so they'll have 7. But no one else had more than 3. Well, Mike Gabinet, where did he come to college from? He was a head coach in U Sport before he came back to be an assistant at Omaha. His grandfather was the legendary coach of the University of Alberta. His grandfather's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And that's where he went. Gabinet went and took the 4 best players from the University of Alberta. So he had some unique insight into that. So I think that's part of it. What connections do the staff have?
Absolutely. It shouldn't be lost in all of this either, from Gavin McKenna all the way on down. The players who are already playing college hockey and already shining in college hockey, more players than ever playing in the NHL came from college hockey. So it warrants mentioning, and obviously the compelling national tournament. We know how great that event is every year. So it warrants mentioning one more time, the incredible high-level talent college hockey fans will be treated to this season. Cannot wait.
Yeah, it should be fun. And I think, just like you said, some of those statistics about the number of guys who are going to the NHL, the way they're adjusting to the NHL, are big things. I think the one thing that everybody underrates when they talk about this is the college life experience. I think that's why so many more kids are going to come. These kids are going to come down here, but the hockey experience of playing in front of a student section, which is completely different than any other level of hockey. The atmospheres in those arenas, a lot of them are really nice with the facilities, but just the experience of living on your own with your buddies from the team, that I think is the most underrated part of this debate. That is a really good life experience. And I do feel that guys like Gavin McKenna's is going to be better prepared for the NHL jump off the ice by going to college and living on his own, going to class, doing those things. That's going to prepare him really well for when he goes to the NHL.
A ton of new players in college hockey this year, a ton of new head coaches in men's college hockey this year too, 11 in all. Thanks to the College Hockey News archives, we did determine that is a record, a Division I men's record, 11 new head coaches. You had a really good article on that. Yeah, that was this week.
Yep.
I'll go through the list here real quick, so bear with me. North Dakota, Dane Jackson. Notre Dame, Brock Sheehan. Ferris State, Brett Riley. Michigan Tech, Bill McCult. Cornell, Casey Jones. RPI, Eric Lang. Yale, Joe Howe. He is the interim coach there. Army, Zach McKelvey. RIT, Matt Thomas. Lindenwood, Keith Fisher. And Long Island, Brendan Riley. 11 new coaches in all.
Yeah, that's, my story was why? Why are we seeing this record? The last time I covered one here in North Dakota, Brad Berry replaced Dave Haxtell. That was the only coaching change the entire summer. 1. This time I cover a coaching change, there are 11. Number 1, a lot of these older legendary coaches are retiring. You look at, it was Jeff Jackson, Bob Daniels, Mike Schaefer, Keith Elaine, Brian Riley, Wayne Wilson. I mean, those are some guys with unbelievable tenures. at their schools that are all retiring. The other thing with all these investments in college hockey and the way it's becoming, a big time, high pressure sport for coaches. North Dakota replaces Bradbury, who was at North Dakota for 10 years, had 0 losing seasons. Who's the last coach that got fired that never had a losing season, who won 5 league titles and the national title? I mean, that's a pretty good tenure. So, I think the pressure on some of these coaches is probably higher with some of the investments that these schools have made. So it'll look different with some of these new coaches this year. Feels like, the last 10 years, we've lost a lot of the just flat out legendary coaches. Some of the winners.
You have to believe some of that is the nature of how the sport has changed, like we've already talked to. Like in a lot of ways, these jobs became unrecognizable, I think, to some of these veteran coaches who they would coach their hockey team, they would teach a class per day. That was the general routine for college hockey coaches. Now you're a general manager, you're a scout, you're like, it's just your whiteboard is obsolete. Everything's different about it.
Yeah. And I know some of the coaches didn't like that. One of the interesting things, I talked to Tom Siratori for the story. Tom Siratori is like invigorated by these changes. He is loving this. He just is so energized by this. So really interesting to see an older coach that is, and he was honestly, Bemidji State was at the forefront of this change. They were watching CHL players before this went through. He anticipated this would happen. And how about Bemidji State? Tom Siratori, I'm going off on a random tangent now, sorry. But they have a player from the Q, from U Sport, from the OHL, from the WHL, from the ECHL, from the US, USHL. They have like recruits from everywhere. And that shows how they've adapted. But you're right. Some of these coaches did not like it, and understandably so. The transfer portal is a huge change. The NIL is a huge change. And, I think it might have been Mike Gabinette from Omaha at Media Day said something along the lines of, we were talking about the changes for the CHL. This is a change for them up there too. We just talked about them, and their coaches are not used to having guys plucked by colleges. And Mike Gabinette kind of said, like, hey, look, we've been dealing with this rapid fire change constantly. It is the fifth year thing with the COVID season, and the transfer portal. Oh, by the way, then there's the multiple time transfers without sitting out. And now, so when the CHL was kind of dumped there, it's a huge change, but it's kind of like, well, time to adapt, because that's what they've had to do like every year for the last 5 years. And so that's something new. The CHL is going to have to adapt, and they probably haven't had quite the just craziness of changes that college has had.
While we're talking head coaches, I want to give you a chance to plug your article on Dane Jackson that ran this morning. I read it just before we started recording. It's fantastic. Everyone should check that out at grandforksherald.com. What struck you while you were talking to various people in Dane's orbit for that article?
Yeah, I just think a lot of people had a lot of the same things to say. So when you start hearing the same comments about someone, then you're probably on the right track. I thought the interesting thing to me was the story about him, his Rochester AHL team that kind of had some riffs in it. And he ended up having them over for dinner every Sunday night. The whole team was required to come for an hour. And they all came, and then they all left. They came, they left. And then all of a sudden, they started lingering longer and longer, and all these players, and they got to be really close. And then they turned around the season. They were like awful mid-season, and then they started winning and winning and winning, and they got into the playoffs, and they rolled to the final. They went to Game 7 and won the title. And I think that season really impacted him on how he really feels strongly that teams that win need to be close. You need to get past surface level relationships. And he said that was something John Tortorella did not like. He did not want surface level stuff. He wanted things to be real. And I think he just learned that once you really develop these bonds, that guys really go to the wall for each other. And I think that's the style of team he wants to build here. And I think you hear that from a lot of teams that win championships, that they do have that commonality in them.
He said, I realized that was part of what makes a great team, getting real and honest. And that part in particular actually really struck me when I was reading it. The other thing that struck me, and I know hockey is a small world already, but it still struck me reading this, is that all of the elite coaches over the years, Dane's paths have crossed.
Yeah,
like there's
crazy.
like a Forrest Gump aspect to this whole thing here.
Yeah, he's definitely, his best friend when he was an elementary school kid was Travis Green, the head coach of the Ottawa Senators in tiny Castlegar, British Columbia, 7,000. Those two came out of there.
Tortorella and Bruce Boudreau in the minors. Pat Quinn was his first NHL coach. It just went on and on and on.
Yeah, he's rubbed shoulders with a lot of legends his whole life, and I think most coaches, especially successful ones, they bring a little bit of everything from different experiences in what they learn from people, and he will definitely do that. And if you haven't checked it out, I also have a story on, as you said, all the different coaching changes that happened and why they're happening. And I also had one on the longest, who are still the long tenured dogs still in college hockey. Rick Gotkin, this is his swan song, his last year. I was amazed at how long he's been the longest tenured guy. It's been like 8 years he's been the longest tenured guy. Amazing tenure for Rick Gotkin. And I get to see him here at the Ralph this year for the first time ever. So I think that's pretty cool. You get to see who are the longest tenured guys. When you start seeing Greg Powers' name on that list, you're like, oh, this is happening quickly. Arizona State didn't have a team when all these teams are going on. Guy Godowski at Penn State's up there. So, that's interesting. I have the oldest coaches, the youngest coaches on that list at the bottom if you scroll down to the articles. So kind of fun little notes. And thank you for the research on the youngest coaches. I didn't have to do that one myself.
That's what we're here for. It is a new world in college hockey. Something else that's new to college hockey that I was pleased to see during the offseason is the launch of the United Collegiate Hockey Cup. This will be a season-end tournament for the Division I independent schools to play in. For those who aren't aware, those schools, because they're not in a conference, do not have the opportunity to earn an auto bid into the national tournament. They have to secure an at-large bid, which is incredibly difficult because putting a schedule together is incredibly challenging for these programs. So they will get, at least in some form, basically a conference tournament to call their own at the end of the year. It will be hosted by Lindenwood in the St. Louis area in 2026 for the first edition. But I think this is great for those schools, for those players to experience this type of event.
No doubt about it. It gives them an opportunity to win a championship. It's not an established league, but you and I were both at North Dakota when North Dakota was transitioning to D1. It did not have a conference. They did this. They formed like this hodgepodge thing and made it kind of a league where they played it. And when they won a championship in that league, it was a big deal to those players.
It mattered. Yep. It matters that they can win a trophy, that they can be named player of the week, all conference, all of those things.
Yep. 100%. And so this is a great development for those programs. And, we've seen some of them have some success. Remember 2 years ago, Lindenwood under Bill McCult was picking off all these teams. Alaska almost made it, as they were like a game away from making the NCAA tournament. So there's some good players out there. They deserve an opportunity to bring some hardware back to their school at the end of the year. And I think that'll be a fun tournament to follow.
Absolutely. Another change to the landscape. The NCAA announced it is transitioning from the PairWise to the NPI. Without getting too deep in the weeds on this, what do fans need to know about this? And I should mention too, USCHO has a fantastic primer article on this if you really want to know the nitty gritty on it. But in general, what do fans need to know about this change?
Number one, USCHO and College Hockey News the people who are at those sites understand this a lot better than you and I do. So we defer to those people. Go to those websites, check it out. But what I've noticed is it's really not a big change. No. It's just a different formula that if you plug in the MPI dials that they're using and then compare it to the PairWise last year, you get the exact same tournament field. Everyone's the same seed. So it's a different formula that's going to essentially work similarly to the PairWise, in my opinion, from what I've seen. So
as far as you know, then what spurred this change on?
I think it's just cleaning it up. It's, making it a little bit simpler, instead of having all these components of the PairWise that really stem from the RPI and that, so it's just a simpler way of doing it. And I think other sports have done it. So it's kind of making it a little bit more uniform, but yeah, I'm probably going to type PairWise several times. It's going to be a transition to type MPI, but really what do the fans need to know? It's essentially the same type of thing. It's a formula that's not all that different from the PairWise. The results aren't that different from the PairWise. And it's a great way to pick the tournament because everyone knows the formula going into the start of the season and just win enough games to get in. And that's not going to be easy this year.
And something else that won't change with this, it still doesn't matter in October. So please don't. It does not matter. Okay, before we get into the conference looks, one last item. Spengler Cup. Quite a year to be Guy Godowski, no?
Yeah, wow. That's
Guy Godowski leads Penn State to its first Frozen Four berth. He lands Gavin McKenna in the offseason, and now he's named head coach of the Spengler Cup team, the first ever U.S. Collegiate All-Star team, the U.S. Collegiate Selects, that will participate over in Switzerland this Christmas.
Yeah, Penn State was 0-8 in Big Ten play at Christmas time last year. That program has, things have changed for Guy Godowski since then. And yes, that should be a cool tournament. If you haven't seen the barn that they'll be playing in Davos, it's one of the more unique ones in hockey. Go Google it. Davos Hockey Arena, check it out. It is it looks fantastic. I think the players are going to have a once in a lifetime experience. They have Guy Godowski has started making calls, sending out the initial. I don't know, it'll be somewhere around 6 to 8 guys that they initially invite. I think they're going to watch the first month of the season before they finish their invites here, in case someone pops. Every conference will be represented on this team, and no freshmen will be on the team. So it'll be fun to see what the final roster looks like. They're kind of going to get thrown into it over there because they're only going to have a couple practices before they start playing, kind of like the Team Canada that always plays in it every year. And then they're playing against some pro club teams in Europe that have been practicing since August. So it'll be a tall task for them, but should be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for those players.
And they will open with Canada. So you're right into the fire. It'll be an older team. There's also the folks putting this team together have to be sensitive to the schedules of college teams. Not everyone is completely idle during that time. There's also players that will be lost to World Juniors. Not everyone will be as willing to lose more players for another tournament at that time of year. So a bit of a tightrope to walk for the folks assembling the team, but it's going to be a fun team to watch regardless.
Absolutely. And then the other note, quick note, the Friendship 4 released about 4 years of participating.
You're going to Ireland.
One thing I've noticed is, the first several years of the Friendship 4, it was really Hockey East and ECAC. Now it is just expanding all across college hockey. You have teams from every different conference going there these next few years. And everything I've heard is that the experience has been unbelievable for everyone that's gone. I had a Northeastern fan reached out to me, said that he went over there and it was just amazing. North Dakota Athletic Director Bill Chaves was at the press conference. He talked to ADs like from Quinnipiac and Northeastern who have been there. and he said the words they said were life-changing, unbelievable life experience. So really fun that these teams and players are able to do something like that. And so if you haven't seen the teams, check it out. Next 3-4 years have been announced. They're bringing over women's teams now, which is a super cool development as well. And I hear nothing but good things about that tournament. So that was another development over the last couple weeks here.
All right, let's get into our conference by conference rundown. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to be as detailed with this as we normally would be. There are lots of great resources out there that have you covered from top to bottom if you want to go check this out. Lots of good folks covering all of the conferences. We'll go through this alphabetically. We'll start with Atlantic Hockey, which you and I have made no secret about how compelling we always find the Atlantic Hockey race. This year's preseason number one is Sacred Heart. Holy Cross won last year's regular season championship. Bentley won the tournament to advance to the NCAA tournament. What's your take on Sacred Heart as we enter the season here? On Atlantic Hockey as we enter the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the hardest leagues to predict. I think that Atlantic Hockey, they lost a couple of guys in the transfer portal, but not like there's a lot of headliners coming back. One guy you're going to hear from this year by the end of the year is Jack Stockfish at Holy Cross. He's a guy NHL teams are circling right now. So they want to go watch Jack Stockfish this year. He's going to be one of those premier players in the country who is undrafted. You look at a guy like Chris Hedden is at Air Force, one of the top scoring defensemen. Ajit Gundara had a fantastic freshman year at Sacred Heart. Niagara's bringing in a really good recruiting class. Canisius has Chase Clark in net. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this league pans out. The Sacred Heart's first in the polls. I really like Holy Cross still. So,
you mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
I like both those teams. And Army lost the fewest guy. I think they have the fewest new players of any team in the country. I think they only have 6 new players. So Army might be a sneaky team in that league.
It's always an older league. It's filled with guys who played a lot of important hockey games, a lot of playoff games. It's an experienced league and always great goaltending. And I just want to add on Chris Hedden too. There isn't a defenseman in the country currently playing that scored more points in his NCAA career or goals or assists. So a lot of interesting players in hockey, Atlantic Hockey, no different than any other year. So we'll keep an eye on that race. In the Big Ten, Michigan State was co-champ last year with Minnesota and then won the conference tournament. They are the preseason number one this year in that league's coaches poll. But man, this is going to be a fascinating league to watch between Penn State and Minnesota and Michigan. And it just goes on and on. Ohio State made the tournament last year. Notre Dame's got a new head coach. Wisconsin should be on the rise, you would think, under Mike Hastings. So this is going to be a fascinating conference to watch this season.
It is. And Michigan State is going to be my preseason number one in the country. I feel Michigan State has everything, both the high-end guys. They have the guys that have a little bit of tenacity and grit. They have older guys. They have younger guys. They have one of the best goalies in the country in Trey Augustine. To me, that team has everything you want in a team. They're going to be my preseason number one team. Also, I'm not going to spoil this yet, but I always have, I think, one pick in my preseason rankings where everyone's like, that is out of left field. My out of left field's coming from the Big Ten. So when I drop top 20, check it out. A lot of high-end talent in that league. It's tough to predict. Again, you get down to
Penn State, they're bringing in Gavin McKenna and others, yes, but they also return the most goals and points in the entire country. That's pretty absurd.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, they're going to score a lot of goals this year. They're going to be really offensive. I'm curious who plays with McKenna. Aiden Fink scored a lot of goals. DeMarsico can really shoot the puck. They're bringing in Matt Godowski from Army, he had just a phenomenal season there. We'll see how Kevin Radler does in net coming over from Omaha. But yes, that's a compelling team. A lot of compelling teams in that league. So again, if you're predicting Big Ten, you start getting down to the bottom of the standings and you're penciling in a team, and that's one of those leagues where you're like, this is not a last place team, but you have to pick someone last. So, and also the other couple of interesting notes in that league, as you mentioned, Guy Godowski coaching the U.S. College Selects over Christmas. Bob Motzko is coaching the World Junior team. So right. He will do that at home. And the Big Ten has not won an NCAA championship since 2007 with Michigan State, but it has had the nation's best non-conference record for 4 years in a row now. So the Big Ten has done very well. It just has not gotten over the hump in the national tournament, but it had a 7-12 winning percentage last year in non-conference.
That's a gaudy number. That's a gaudy number for sure. In the CCHA, the preseason number one was split. The coaches pegged St. Thomas. The media had Minnesota State, which ran the table last year, regular season and tournament. What's your take?
My take is the coaches and media had the exact same dilemma I had. I looked at those two teams. I moved them back and forth over and over. I actually think this conference, this is when I was going through the lineup sheets, this is the best I've seen this league. I really think the CCHA is going to have one of its best seasons to date. I think both, Minnesota State's going to be, they're just not going to give up goals. They have not only Alex Tracy, but I know everyone sees how they lost all those players up front. Quietly, Minnesota State has its top 4 D back. And that team didn't allow anything last year. Now all of a sudden St. Thomas is in there, and St. Thomas is, really good. Augustana, I think Augustana is going to be really good. They're tough to play against. They don't give up a much. Bill McCult, he's been known as one of the best recruiters in the country for years. He did some great work in short order. And Michigan Tech has a phenomenal recruiting class.
22 freshmen and sophomores on that roster.
They are very young. That is the drawback. But the talent, some of those guys are players. Like, they've got some really good players coming in. Bowling Green went up and got a bunch of CHL guys, where Dennis Williams is more familiar with the CHL than any college coach. He coached in the Dub. Yeah. Bemidji State, I talked about how the things they did this offseason. I think, Northern Michigan was in a really tough spot last summer. Their coaching staff did a great job this summer improving the talent there. I just looked top to bottom, and almost every team's better than last season. So I think this is going to be a league that performs much better in non-conference this year.
Let's talk about the ECAC. We talked earlier about all of the coaching changes, 11 in all. 3 of them were in ECAC, I believe, which is more than any other league. So you've got that element at play. Quinnipiac is the preseason number 1. They did win the regular season championship last year. Cornell won the tournament in Mike Schaefer's swan song. So Quinnipiac, the number 1, was that at all a surprise to you?
No, I think Quinnipiac is definitely the pick. The one interesting thing about Quinnipiac is the Bobcats the last few summers have been going out into the transfer portal, getting older D. They, 2 or 3 every year, and it's really worked. Yeah. Older D have worked for them. They didn't really do that this year. They went out and got Will Gilson, but that was it, I believe, on the D core. So that's a little bit of a change, but they're still loaded. The one team that I think is going to be intriguing in this league that's going to kind of rise is Union. I like Union's team. They're bringing in a freshman who I think is going to be the top freshman in the league, and Etienne Lassard, a defenseman who played in the USHL last year and was really a fantastic player. and Union already has a good group of returners. I think this is Union's year to jump right up in the top of the standings again after a great year last year.
Great year last year and a new arena this year.
Yes, that probably helped
Bank Center.
recruiting.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, Union might be a good team to watch in that league. It's a tough league to predict. Cornell lost a lot of players, but man, do I like Cornell's centers. They have some really good centers with Jonathan Castagna, with Walsh. That's a really good place to start. They have some pretty good D-men. Of course, Ian Shane is gone in net, and that's a big loss. But yeah, those are a couple of the notes. Quinnipiac also longest active streak of regular season titles. Quinnipiac's won 5 straight, trying to match Minnesota State's run of 6 in a row from 2018 to 2023. RPI, new head coach in Eric Lang, 19 new players in RPI, which is second most in the country, I believe. So Eric Lang's really turning over that roster. One storyline to watch for RPI is they have a freshman coming in named Matthew Jovanovic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He has not played a hockey game in 5 years.
Yeah, we were trying to uncover this summer when we always text back and forth, just comparing roster data, make sure we're catching everyone, and you uncovered this story.
Yeah, I finally called Eric Lang and said, okay, I need to know what the story is with him. And he's been hurt. But he's finally healthy. I think Eric Lang heard from one of his connections that had been skating with him, like, this kid looks really good. And he was like a really high prospect when he was like 16 and first started suffering these injuries. And they were like, this kid's actually really good. So they recruited him. We'll see how it goes. I hope for the best for him. That's a long time to be hurt. So let's hope he stays healthy and can be a consistent spot in the lineup for them.
Hockey East, which was absurdly deep last season.
Yeah.
BU is the preseason number 1 in the coaches poll, and I find this fascinating. BU and BC are always young anyway, but BU this year, as of today, their average age is 19.9 years, so they're the youngest team in college hockey this season. I went back, we've got about 5 years worth of data on this, and this is the first time a team will open the season with an average age under 20, and they are considered the preseason favorite. So this is pretty fascinating to me to see how that unfolds.
It should be, because we know that younger players a lot of times have an adjustment period in college hockey.
Big time, yep.
But on the flip side, BU has 19 NHL draft picks on its roster. I don't think we've seen anything like that. I can't remember 19.
So I was chatting with actually Bernie Corbett earlier this week, the great Bernie Corbett, their radio play-by-play announcer. I think he said 20. They had someone with 20 several years ago, but this was back in the expanded draft format where the NHL had 12 rounds or whatever, and a supplemental round and all of that. So perhaps apples and oranges, but regardless, 19 is a crazy big number.
Yeah. For this day and age, it is. So BU only has one senior. Transfer Owen McLaughlin is the only senior at BU. So it is a very young but talented squad. And it'll be interesting to see how they compare to teams that are built differently. UMass lost a ton of forwards, like just a ton of scoring's gone from UMass. I'm intrigued by UMass because I really like UMass's D-core. I think they can play a different style game than some other teams in Hockey East. And obviously goaltending is a highlight for UMass.
Goaltending, the defense core, and they're one of the biggest teams in the country, if not the biggest. So they're built for tournament play, theoretically.
They are. They can lean on you. They can play a physical, tough style game. And in Hockey East, where you have some of these younger teams, sometimes that works. So UMass is my team. I'm going to probably have them higher than everyone else just because I know scoring is going to dry up on some nights. But I just really think when you have a tough D-core like that and an elite goaltender, that's a good place to start. So, but yes, Roger McQueen going to Providence at the last minute, they're in August, getting a top 10 pick in August is a big deal for Providence. One other thing, by the way, if you're a college hockey fan and you're seeing some of these high-end CHL players come down, it's kind of unique how many different schools they're going to, right? Like, yeah. North Dakota's got, Cole Reschny and Keaton Verhoff. You've got Roger McQueen and Gavin McKenna going to different schools. And Michigan's got a few of them. And Michigan State's got it. Like, they're kind of spreading out this talent. Hockey East. The other takeaway from Hockey East, I'm going to have Northeastern and Lowell a little bit lower in my standings. Northeastern and Lowell have fantastic recruiting classes. Those two teams absolutely knocked it out of the park recruiting-wise. Like, two of the best in the country. The reason they're low on my list is because they're young. They have some really young players. It's going to take some time. But if you're a fan of Northeastern or Lowell, you should be real excited about the group that those two teams are bringing in.
Future is bright for them for sure. Let's finish up in your backyard with the NCHC, where last year Western Michigan ran the entire table. They won the regular season championship. They won the playoff championship. They won the national championship. They are obviously the preseason number one, not just in the NCHC media poll, but in the preseason national polls. Is Western Michigan positioned for a possible repeat run?
Yeah, and I'm definitely one who a lot of people will put last year's champion at the top just automatically, and I like really looking at it to see are they really going to be up high again? Because a lot of these teams win and they lose a ton of players, and everyone just votes them high, and I'm like, they're not the favorite anymore. Western is legitimately that good again. I think they lost a couple players, but they kept a lot of guys. Their D-core just takes your time and space away. They skate so well. They eat you up. And they have a lot of guys back on the D-core. They add Zach Bookman, who I think is really good. They have Hampton Slakinski. Up front, they lost Alex Bump. And yes, Alex Bump was legit phenomenal last year. He didn't have a point in the NCAA tournament, and they still won it. So they add in Zachariah Wisdom. I think they're expecting Will Whitelaw to pop offensively for them and maybe be a little bit of their high-end producer. But they've got some guys that are tough to play against. They've got the D-core is just tough to play against because they skate so well. They don't physically destroy you, but they just will eat you up. And obviously, Jayson Hajdu, their assistant coach there, he worked with the D at Minnesota Duluth on those national title teams. He's working with the D at Western Michigan. I mean, I don't know if he won the assistant coach of the year. They award that in Florida every year, but like it's time for him to win that, right?
No question. And up front, like you said, they lose an Alex Bump, but I think only Penn State and UConn return more goals from last season. And then all of this is on paper stuff, but you can't overstate also the standard has been set there now as a program.
Yeah.
It's a veteran team. They're aware of the standard. So they're primed and loaded to make it. It's hard. It's obviously it's incredibly difficult to repeat in college hockey, but they're as well positioned probably as any recent team we've seen.
Yep. I think they've reloaded. We'll see how it goes, but this is not a vote because where they finished. This is a vote because of what they have in their roster. So yes, a very intriguing team.
And they do have to survive the NCHC gauntlet.
Yes. And it is a very deep league. Again, this was like the Big Ten. I got down to number 8 and I was like, there's no chance this team's finishing 8, but someone has to. Miami really struggled last year. Miami improved its talent significantly. It's going to be a challenging league. But yes, Western is deservingly going to be the preseason favorite.
Western returns a lot of offense from last year. Denver returns a lot of offense. You mentioned St. Cloud State too. A lot of their goal scoring production is back this year. So I don't know, how do you see this? We're not gifting Western Michigan the number one spot by any means, but after Western Michigan, how do you see this shaking out?
Yeah, Denver's extremely deep up front. They have Sam Harris as a headliner. I don't know if they have quite the production of the top three guys that they had last year, but their fourth line's like interchangeable with their first almost. I think they're that deep. North Dakota's got 15 new players, is a huge turnover in the roster, but there's some talent there, especially on the D-core. Only team in the country last year that was using a D-core that didn't have an upperclassman. These guys are a little bit older now. They're going to be intriguing. St. Cloud State is the team.
I'll interrupt you there too. Yeah. We talked off air about how many holes Dane Jackson had to fill in a short period of time too after taking that job.
15 new players. A lot of times that means you're going to have most of those guys already committed, right? Like they're sitting in your system. He had to commit 11 guys this summer alone. So it was a mad scramble.
Especially at the middle.
They definitely did not just go out and grab guys. They were very patient, and Dane Jackson had a list of attributes he wanted out of his players, and he stayed patient and ended up being rewarded for it. But if that were me, I would have gone out and just grabbed guys because I would have been worried about being left with nothing. So it worked out for them. The team everyone's sleeping on in this league is St. Cloud State. They had a few guys that just did not produce offensively last year, and they couldn't score goals. But I look at that team on paper, and I think everyone's missing on St. Cloud. I like that team. I think some guys are going to have bounce back years. CC's talent is CC got more NHL draft picks out of the CHL than any team in the country. I think they got 6 NHL picks out of the CHL. So they really upped their talent. Chris Mayotte has been really complimentary of John Lidgett, their assistant coach, who went up in Western Canada and went and recruited a lot of really, really talented players for the Tigers. The question for them is, are they too young? That's a young team there, but the talent is there. So that's what we're kind of balancing when I vote these teams. Like, can the talent overcome the youth? That's the question. I don't know the answer for these teams. We'll find out soon.
We will find out soon. Friday, the puck drops Friday, the beginning of the regular season. Before I let you go, though, I want to give you an opportunity to plug everything else you're working on right now. I know the big season preview section. Tell us about that.
Yeah. My theme was coaching changes because we had one here. So I'm, trying to introduce the fans to Dane Jackson, but also get into the fact that there were more coaching changes this summer than ever before. Who are some of the guys that have, lasted through this tumultuous time? All about coaching changes. I also will have my conference by conference preview. It's probably on the website right now already by the time you listen to this, but GrandForksHerald.com/UND hockey. I have my predicted order of finish, players to watch, notes to know about each league and the independents. Check it out. Tell me where I missed on these standing predictions. Hey, I picked Western Michigan like 7th last year, 8th in the NCHC. I have never blown a pick that bad. I don't think anyone was ripping on me before the season for that pick. You guys got to get on my case. What am I missing? Not
even Adam Bodner.
Not even Adam Bodner was on my case. But I think we knew by the end of the first month, this team's really good. And Western Michigan did become the first team since Union in 2014 to win regular season title, postseason title, and NCAA title in the same year. So what a team they had last year. we'll see how things shape. I'm excited to get going. We've written all about the start of the season. And if you want to check out my content, GrandForksHerald.com/UND hockey. A lot of the stories will be North Dakota centric. However, I am going to try to do a weekly column that will pick out different things that are happening around the country. So I do want to get into a lot of the other happenings in the country, because I feel that there are a lot of markets in college hockey that don't have the coverage that they should have. There are a lot of interesting storylines all over the country. I wish I had more hours of the day to tell all of them. But I will do my best to share some stories that college hockey fans need to know about what's going on around the country. So that's where you can find my stuff.
Awesome. Look for it, everyone. It's can't miss stuff. Brad, thanks for joining us as always. Thank you all for listening as always. And before we go, a stick tap here to a member of the College Hockey Inc. staff, Chris Marini. He is our Director of Men's Hockey Athlete Relations. Chris and his wife Amanda became parents for the first time just a few hours ago. We're recording this first thing Wednesday morning, and earlier this morning, Miles Joseph Marini was born. Everyone is doing great, and we've added one new college hockey fan to this world, which is a great thing. So congratulations to the Marini family. With that, thank you all for listening. Almost time to drop the puck. Enjoy the hockey.